Well, first of all, I would like to say thank you so much for everyone taking time to join us today. I know it's a very busy time of year. December is a busy time for whatever's going on in your businesses. It's a busy time in our personal lives as well. So, really grateful for you taking, a half hour out of your day today to join us for our last educational module of the year. A little tongue in cheek. I don't know how educational it will be, but it'll give an opportunity, I think, for us to get to meet each other. I know this group has probably seen my name, popping through different communications. I've had the opportunity to meet some of you already, and excited to keep meeting the people that are on this phone. But did want to take the opportunity as I'm getting close to celebrating my 2-month anniversary as the new CEO of ISIA, to tell you a little bit about myself. Sort of what I've been up to these first couple of months. What I'm really trying to bring to the position and to the association and to all the stakeholders in the role, and some of the initial thoughts and priorities that are mine, and I think hopefully yours as well, as we're working together moving forward. I have a few slides, but I promise nothing too intense. We promise interactive, and certainly want to have the opportunity to take your questions today, as well as in the future as well. It doesn't just have to be today. So give me 1 second to get the slideshow up and running here. And everybody can see this? If Catherine, you can give me a verbal yes, then I will jump
Yes.
right in.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, if you do know me, you should not be surprised to see that I'm going to have an about me slide as I start this presentation. I love to get to know the people I work with, and I think it's fair that you get to know me as well. And that's, not just necessarily the work stuff. From a personal perspective, this is my family right here. My husband, Kel, we celebrated our 20-year anniversary this year in October. We have an 8-year-old daughter, Riley, and live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas. I said since 2008. It seems like when I speak to most people, they say I don't sound like a native Texan, and I'm not. I actually grew up in the Midwest in Illinois in a very rural community, but Texas is definitely now home for us and has been for quite some time. From an educational perspective, I always say I'm a scientist by education and by passion. I have a bachelor's degree in biology from Southeast Missouri State University in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. I know we probably have a couple people on the call very familiar with Cape. I also do have an MBA in general business studies that I got from the University of North Texas as I was further along in my career. When I think about, the skills that I really wanted to highlight that I think are so important and that I've seen, Rosie demonstrate as I've been working with her, is, I really do consider myself a passion for communication. I think it's really important. I think most things can be usually addressed if we're communicating. It may not happen fast, but I really do believe in the power of bilateral communication. And I consider myself a connector. I do really like to bring people together. I like to bring organizations together and really try to facilitate understanding of different perspectives. I consider myself very resilient and level-headed. I'm going to talk a little bit about my career background on the next slide, but that skill was honed pretty early on in my career. I was part of an emergency response group dealing with customer safety issues and hazardous material issues early on in my career, and really nothing I've ever faced in my career compares to dealing with first responders that have a truck on the side of the road with some kind of hazardous chemical in the back of it, or someone who's accidentally created cyanide gas. So really nothing I've encountered since then can measure up to that, but it really did instill in that, to approach those situations with a level head and a calm nature. What fuels me? A lot of things. But when it comes to my professional life, I really do like to think about providing value to the scientific community and making a difference. It's very important for me to stay connected to the roots in science and what's happening out in the scientific community. And I really love to combine strategy with execution. When I was going through the interview process for this role, someone asked me if I thought strategy or execution was more important. That's a really hard question to answer. I answered, I believe you have to have strategy in order to have effective execution. Otherwise, you're just doing a lot of unconnected tasks. But me personally, I love to think about things and do blue sky thinking, but I do also still like to get in the weeds and be in the trenches as well. It's just my personal preference, and finding that this role and this association gives me the ability to do both already. There's a lot on this slide, and I don't usually like to put a lot of words and things on one slide, but I think it's really important as we're having a transition of leadership in the association, with Rosie being at the helm for so many years, that I can really share with all of our stakeholders here, what I can bring to the association, and hopefully what can I bring to you as stakeholders of our association. This is just a timeline of my career over the years. I've worked at a number of different life sciences organizations over the years, 22 years, starting to get close to 23 at this point in time. I spent the early part of my career at Sigma Aldrich, and through the acquisition by Merck and the launch of Millipore Sigma. When I left Millipore Sigma, I joined a company called Hemacare that was later acquired by Charles River Laboratories. I spent quite some time at Abcam, recently acquired by Danaher. And prior to joining the ISIA, I was at BioIVT. I've led a lot of teams, formal people leadership over 10 years. I've had very small teams. I've had teams as large as 60. But what I think from a leadership perspective that really serves well in the association is, throughout my career, really have had that constant expectation to be able to lead and produce results by doing that connector and that communication piece that I spoke about on the prior slide. We used to say managing through influence, and that is really understanding those perspectives and being able to prioritize and support and driving action, which I think is really the best way to get results in this type of a role. I've got solid business experience. I've been responsible for revenues in excess of 200 million. I've been responsible for operating budgets in excess of 4 million. I do have multiple experiences in highly regulated environments, really across my tenure. I've worked in environments where dealing with human-derived materials as well as animal-derived materials throughout my career. And though I have a lot of experience in commercial functions, I did start my career in the lab, in a GMP QC lab, where we were testing active pharmaceutical ingredients. I spent just over 3 years in environmental health and safety and compliance. And then in my later roles, even in commercial roles, working closely with customers, a lot of interface with regulatory authorities in different ways as I was trying to support my customers in achieving their goals. A lot of experience in different sized organizations, as you can see here. I worked in very small organizations, less than 75 people when I joined Hemacare, mid-size and large organizations. So I certainly understand the dynamics and the different priorities and the way that we have to work in those different kinds of organizations. I've worked globally for many, many years. I've had responsibility for global teams, global customers, and really like to try to think of myself as a global citizen as I approach any challenge, or not least, as we sit here at the ISIA. I've had multiple roles over these 2 decades, really touching serum in a lot of different ways, whether that is selling serum or marketing serum, to testing serum, to making sure we had the appropriate labeling, supporting in transport, and not just for animal serum, but also for human products as well. So I wanted to talk with you a little bit around initial priorities. And to be very frank, I'm still bringing this together. Like I said, my 2 month anniversary will be next week. But I've definitely thought about, what's first and what's second. And what do I need to make sure that I'm doing the right things in service to our stakeholders? So I'm going to start on the top left, which is really where I've been focused these first 2 months, and that's study the past and work in the present. I don't believe you can be successful in any role without understanding what's happened previously and really respecting that before you take any action. So for the last couple of months, I've had the luxury to work very, very closely with Rosie Verstegen, with our board of directors, with Catherine, and with many of you actually having some introductory calls as key stakeholders. I have to say, this has been such a luxury to be able to overlap with Rosie and really benefit from her experience in her role and just in the industry itself. It's a luxury I've never had in any of my work transitions. I highly recommend if it's possible. But she's done a fantastic job in really trying to share decades of knowledge and experience and help build that foundation in conjunction with the rest of our team members in the ISIA. Going over to the right, really looking where I can leverage the skills that I bring and potentially identify gaps. Looking for immediate areas of support and contribution that I can bring, and constructing action plans if gaps do exist. I need to ramp up some knowledge in certain areas. And for example, here, I just completed a website audit where, looking to make sure that we're bringing the right content to our stakeholders in the right way, and getting the most traction from the educational pieces that we're putting out there and making sure that they're getting to the right people. Over in the lower left, reinforce, not rebuild. This is a fantastic association, and I'm certainly not here to create a revolution and walk away from what we've done over these last years. But also recognizing that the world is changing, the industry changes constantly, and how do we continue to grow together to make sure that we're mitigating challenges together, and that we're also taking advantage of opportunities that are out there as a collective association. So really trying to take the insights I have from my experience to enhance the goals of the association. Some of my priorities are really connecting with our end user community, looking at our individual members, looking at, how do we continue to improve and expand our member participation. I had a couple of conversations already from people that say very candidly, I don't think I'm getting everything I could out of the association. So want to make sure that we are engaging and identifying areas for, how we can support people in getting the most out of the association. And a lot of that comes with participation. And certainly not last but not least, but talking about traceability certification and how important traceability is in the industry. And last but certainly not least is conducting the Voice of the Association study. And I said early on that I'm working on building the foundation, thinking about the strategic objectives for 2024 and beyond, so that we can start putting together the tactical execution components of that as a team. But to do that, I need to hear from you. I need to hear what's important to you. I need to hear what is working, what's not, ideas. And that comes from current members of the association, which is where we've really started this. This comes from maybe past members of the association. This comes from people that have never been a part of the association. I think it's really important to do, a voice of stakeholder and a voice of customer as we develop that strategic plan on where do we go together and how do we define what value we're currently bringing, and really look for those opportunities to build value for all members. I said this a couple of times already. Certainly, everything we do is not going to bring value to every member, but my goal is that every member has something of value from the association. I truly expect that we're supporting you and getting you the return on investment for the association, because I think we can, and we should. With that, I will stop talking so much, at least, and open it up for any questions. Um, I'll answer what I can. If I can't answer it, you're going to find that I'm very honest about that. And we'll certainly get back to you if it's something that I don't feel comfortable answering today because I don't know, or I don't have enough in these 2 months to be able to answer it in the way that I would want to answer it for you. But I can assure you that you will hear back from me shortly. You can raise your hand here in Teams and Catherine and I will call on you. You'll need to unmute yourself when we do. If you'd rather just type something into the chat or into the Q&A section, Catherine and I could read that and address that. And if you don't have something today, but you think of something later, I'm definitely opening this up that don't be shy. Reach out, please. Don't wait for those one-on-one meetings that we're going to be having in January. Shoot me an email. Some of you already have, and I appreciate that. Shoot Catherine an email, and she can work to get you on my calendar as well. But we really want this session today to be that opening of that two-way dialogue and that communication that I think is so critical to success for myself, and for the association, and for you guys too as stakeholders. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen. And I will take a drink of my tea so that I can actually talk. Dana, I know you understand that from yesterday. And any questions? I have a couple that actually came in. So if we don't have any from this group, if you guys are really quiet today, or I just answered them all with those stellar slides, I have a couple that individuals sent that were not able to join today. So we can start with that if we want. Feel better soon, Dana. As you know, there's stuff going around my house too. All right. I'll share with you a question I got off the record. So, oh, well, there you go, Jenny. I'll answer your question first. All right. Are we thinking about broadening the scope of the association? I am, to be very candid with you. As I think about the future of the association, a lot of the foundational work that's been done, and that the discussions that I've had up to this point have been very much focused on fetal, and I don't think there's any surprise there. That's where that's need to focus and where the associations needed to focus. But we are the International Serum Industry Association, and I think there are opportunities out there that we as a group need to be looking at, for multiple reasons. There's some selfish reasons in the sense that it allows us to potentially meet and engage new members and new end users out there if we expand the scope. I think the work of the association that we've done so far, I think we have a lot of learnings, and we have a lot of content and practices as an industry that other areas are struggling with, are still building right now. I think, coming from the world of CGT in my last couple of roles, and human-derived materials, there are a lot of areas there that I think some of the collaboration that we've been doing, for the last couple of decades when it comes to fetal, certainly translate well. And there's somewhat of maybe a sense of responsibility to, could we help support and advance in that area as well? It's one of the key pieces of information I'm looking at as I do some of these one-on-one conversations. I'd love to get the feedback from the different stakeholder groups. But from my perspective, I do think that's an opportunity for us as we move forward. Thank you very much for the question. All right. Oh, Adam, great question. I didn't even talk about the annual meeting, and it's so much of my focus right now. So as we think about our annual meeting in 2024, the top 2 or 3 objectives are changing for the changes for the meeting. I think going back to the make sure that we're really enhancing, not rebuilding. So, as I look back over the agendas and the scopes of the last meetings, and I've been able to really review a lot of that content, what I don't want to change is that opportunity to get together and have those educational opportunities, and bringing in some of those subject matter experts that have been part of the meetings in the past. I'd say first and foremost, what I do think maybe has been missing in the past, and that we're looking to change, is bringing in more opportunities for some discussion and honestly constructive debate, with some more panel sessions with different subject matter experts, so that it's not necessarily just a presentation, but an opportunity for dialogue. Because I think you guys all know so much of what we're discussing and that we're talking about may not have one answer. And great to bring those different perspectives together and be able to have a dialogue, and maybe have some conflicting views for us to push that conversation forward. So that's one of the main changes that we're looking at for the 2024 meeting, is for some of our key topic areas, bringing in a diverse group of subject matter experts to engage in dialogue, and be able to take questions and feedback from the audience as well. I think the other piece is, as we have focused breakout sessions, I mentioned that I say everything we do in the association isn't necessarily going to resonate with everybody, and that's okay. But I want to make sure that people are able to connect in those topics that are of most importance to them. So we're looking for ways to expand our breakout sessions in order to have, maybe a more holistic or high-level discussion of a topic in general session, but have more than one breakout session, so that you can go and do a deeper dive into a topic of interest to you, to your perspective and where you're coming from, and give you the opportunity to go to more than one, because you may not just have one topic of interest. You may want to hit two different topics while you're there at the meeting, and they're both important to you and your organization. So we're really looking at ways that we can facilitate that. I think it comes down to, making sure we're bringing good educational content to the people that attend our meetings, but sort of taking it to that next level and elevating it, that whoever comes can really get that value that's personalized to them and to their organizations. All right, Jenny, I'm going to come back to your typed in question. Mark has his hand up, so I'm going to let him go ahead and ask, and I'll come back to your question in the chat. Mark, do you want to unmute yourself and ask?
I'm not asking. I'm just, I would like to share something with you. First of all, a warm welcome to the serum industry. So I wish you all of success. Okay?
Thank you.
I'm pretty sure that you know that I'm leading the European Serum Products Association. And I just wanted to explain that at one point, we are doing things from a different angle, and I think that's just interesting. Okay, but we go for the same thing.
At the end.
At the end of we have some. You may know that Jenny and I we were doing the pre-work for the ISIA many years ago. And I've been in the ISIA for about 10 years, leading the European team together with Jenny and many others. So this is just to say we work for the same thing, and I hope that at one point our viewpoints may come together.
I appreciate the warm welcome, Mark, and really welcome the opportunity for us to dialogue very soon. You're on my list for us to have a one-on-one session, because again, I think there's always a lot more opportunities to advance together, right? I think a lot of times when we have the communication, we find those opportunities for alignment, right? So I always think that it just comes down to that communication. So
that's really the message.
Really looking forward to us connecting soon. And thank you again for the welcome.
You're very welcome.
All right. Great question, Jenny. I mean, Jenny's going to do some voice of customer right here on the call. Why not? I agree. Let's do that. And that is, as we look for those opportunities of broadening or expanding, what are your ideas? If you have any right here, if you want to, hold on to them or shoot them to me in an email, that's fine too. But, what would you like to see it covered? Like, could we build a register for, media containing serum products? I guess that's a good challenge for this group right here as we think about that. What are those opportunities? What's important to you as we look at those opportunities? I tend to always jump to the human piece because I've lived so long in that space the last few years and seen what it's like out there. But there's lots of opportunity beyond that. I agree. And I think it's really important to get your feedback. So do feel free to drop something in the chat. Thanks, Jenny. Do feel free to drop something in the chat, or like I said, think about it before our one-on-ones that we have together, or shoot me an email with any ideas that you have there. So one of the questions I got in advance that I'll share with this group is, what do you think some of the more significant or emerging challenges to our industry that we're seeing right now? And I don't think the challenges that we're seeing right now are necessarily unique to our industry, to be honest. I think a lot of us are feeling some of the same challenges in the sort of reset of the global life sciences market after COVID. I think, trying to figure out what normal is again is really challenging. I think everybody's experiencing the financial pressures, dealing with the inflationary environment that we're in and just how expensive everything is. And, end users are cutting back budgets. A lot of our organizations are cutting back budgets. And it's just a very different environment to really operate in right now, and have to be very thoughtful in what we prioritize. And again, what we're getting value from. I think we have to acknowledge what's going on in the world. It's a very, very chaotic time as we look at the geopolitical climate right now, and with Russia and Ukraine, what's happening with Israel, Palestine, what we see continuously still happening in relationships with China. And it is a very, very challenging geopolitical climate that we're working in right now, a little bit more complex than we've seen in the last years. So I think, again, when we talk, we find that many of us are facing the same challenges. And I think there's always challenges in this industry specifically, but I think exacerbated right now with some of what's happening in really more of the macro view of life sciences and the economy as a whole. Another question I have is, how could you see engaging more individual or end user members? Because that was, mentioned in my slides as one of my key priorities. I think it's critical as we look at expanding the association that we are engaging more end users in what we're doing. Again, I think it comes down to that value that we're providing to them and making sure that they understand. As simple as doing the website audit. I see educational tools out there that I have a feeling some of our end user potential members aren't necessarily seeing. So looking for ways that we can connect to them. I think we have some opportunities to look at different industry segments that maybe we haven't engaged with as much as some of biopharma in the past. But I think we do have to be creative. And I think it really does come down to articulating that value that we can bring to them and demonstrating that. And I think connecting with some of those members we have that fit into that category. And I think that's where that voice of customer comes in so critically as we look for that expansion. But is it a top priority for me? I think it brings value for those individuals, but I think it brings value for the different stakeholders of the association as well to be so tightly connected with who they're serving. Oh, got someone off mute there. All right. Any other questions? Thank you so much for those. Those are great questions. I really appreciate it.
Wait until I get paid.
think that was a question. I think that's just the.
That was not a question.
Okay, I was like, I think it was just background noise, but just making sure. All right. Well, if there aren't any more questions, as I said, please don't hesitate to reach out. Like I said, I hope this really opens those lines of communication. Some of you have already, taken the opportunity to drop me an email. We may have something on the calendar. If we don't, we likely will soon, as we turn over into the beginning part of 2024. But if something comes up and you'd like to ask, Catherine or myself, happy to connect with you at any time and chat and connect. I want to thank you all again for joining us today. Like I said, I know you all have busy schedules. It means a lot to me for you to join and for us to have the opportunity to share a little bit about me and what I'm looking to do here, working in conjunction with each one of you. And I want to take the opportunity to wish you all a happy holidays and a very successful start to the upcoming year, and hope to see you all soon, maybe in April at the AGM. Thank you all so much.